going live, and we're alive. Here we are in State Control Britain with the world's top nutritionist, Richard Smith, and my good self. How are you, Richard?
Stephen Thomas, very well, thank you, my man. How are you?
I'm really good. Yeah, I'm really good. And I just want to say to people, don't forget, you can put a QQQ in front of your question and we will answer it. Right. Now, if you get in quick, you'll get your question answered, because I tell you what, I'm going to talk about the fact why I think we're the best Q&A in the world for Carnivore. And that's because we respect your time. Meaning we don't give you a short answer, right? Now, when Richard gives you a long answer, he is respecting you by giving you his time for nothing. All right. So if you moan with 5 minutes to go and you put a question in after 5 minutes from the end, but we don't get to your question, it's because we care about you. And Richard is the prime example of someone who puts time into you, and it's completely free. All right. So this is on the back of a few people saying, well, we always put a question and never gets to it. Well, you need to come in. Sorry. And people have done that. I can see in front of me 4 questions already, which is not telling you off. I'm not being like a teacher. This is not Bart K telling you if you're late, you're going to be doing rubbers and stuff like that. I'm just trying to say, so yes, if you want to put a QQQ in front of your question, it's going to get seen. If you give us a super chat, which we were very, very generous last week, which really absolutely helps us so much, then that puts you ahead of the queue. All right. So with that said, and that thing about Richard there, we're going to go straight into the question. And it's from Asterisk Star. Is it possible to do 3-4 small meals a day, we're assuming? I have gastritis and it's tough to digest protein and hard on the stomach.
100%. Look, I think when we gravitate into this way of living, many of us, and the mistake I think many of us make is not eating enough. Many of us come into this for weight loss, and the health generally seems to be a secondary thing, whereas the reality is health is everything, and it should be driven by health. When we gravitate into this, and this is a mistake done by women more than men, I believe, they will eat 1 meal a day, lots of it, and then they'll fast for the rest of it, which is fantastic if it works for you. But I do find that 1 to 2 meals for a man seems to be more optimal, and 2 to 3 works better for women. But we're all coming from, biologically, we're all the same. So when people say, oh, we're all different, well, we're not. You don't see a lion in the wild one day deciding to eat berries off a tree just because we're all different, and well, no, you're a lion, you eat meat. And it's the same with us. Biologically, we're all the same. So this rubbish when people say, oh, well, we're all different, it's bollocks. We all require animal proteins and we all require natural fats, and it's as simple as that. And our requirement for carbohydrate is exactly 0 from an exogenous source, because our bodies make all of the glucose that we need. So we are carnivores. We know this from 3.4 million years of evolution and testing and nitrogen isotope testing. We know that we're carnivores. Now, where we are different is how damaged that we are and where we are coming from. So for me, I can fast for 3 or 4 days. I could fast for however long I want. I can eat 4, 5, 6 meals a day, whatever. My body is healed. My body is in a different place. So if somebody new to the lifestyle is damaged beyond the capacity that I am or somebody else is, then this is what's different. But the dietary macronutrients and the sources of these things are the same regardless whether you're man, woman, or child. But the frequency for someone who has gastritis or intestinal permeability, IBS, whatever it may be, acid reflux, it could be an issue in regards to somebody who is suffering with bile reabsorption, so they're suffering with issues in regards to digestion and processing the food. So yes, is the short answer. You can eat 3 or 4 small meals. This is fine. Now, what I would add to this is that we do want to have a set period where we leave the digestive system relax So eat your 3 or 4 meals, your smaller meals throughout the day. This is going to help you consume the meals, process those nutrients. And when we sleep, this is when we rest and digest, as the saying goes. So when we wake, maybe don't break your fast. You have your breakfast with as early as you would normally. Maybe move this out. So just be conscious that we do need this time to rest also. But there is nothing wrong with 3 or 4 small meals. There's also nothing wrong with going less on the fat if you're suffering with issues from that respect. And there's nothing wrong with lowering the protein, as long as we are actually consuming the protein and the natural fats. Everything takes time. If we're highly damaged, then this repair is going to take a little bit longer. But what are the cells in the body made of? Our cells in the body, predominant, besides water, is protein and fat. So we need protein and fat in order to heal and repair the body. This is what protein synthesis is. We photocopy the DNA and we create human proteins. We consume animal proteins. These break down into amino acids and we reconstitute them into human proteins, which heal and repair the body. So yes, if you feel that you need 3 or 4 meals a day, there is nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing I was trying to get at when I say about a full or frank answer, because you also give the reasons. That's what we both try to do that. You particularly are very adept at that, Richard. So I want to thank you. And it's always an honor to sit here. And I can get on with picking out the questions and looking at the wonderful people like Tina, who has donated $5 through the super chat, which honestly doesn't sound like much, but it builds up and it really helps. So when we're trying to get some software to improve it, better sound, some guests, believe it or not, want to, be paid to come on. So, it really does help. The next question is from, so thank you, Tina. Right, is from MJ. Mentioned recently my 76-year-old mum who's gone carnivore, having leg cramps at night, Keto Pro, electrolytes, magnesium, and sorts of food. Any other tips, guys?
Yeah, good question. And incredibly common. So look, as we gravitate into this, if we make big changes, the body goes through lots of problems. Now, I generally advise people not to jump straight into carnivore. You can do this, and many people do, and they thrive. But for me, I achieved this through a series of incremental changes, because the body's coming from a state of being full of toxins. We've been consuming lots of sugar for our entire existence. We're highly glycated. We're suffering with oxidative stress. We're holding on to compounds like oxalate and other nasties within the body. So the body needs to go through a process of adapting and releasing these toxins. And this can contribute to things like leg cramps. It can upset your stomach, mood. And basically what happens is when we gravitate too deeply, the insulin drops. It signals the kidneys to release the sodium from the body, and it can lead to a deficiency within sodium. So you're doing the right things. The KP electrolytes, always on hand. I've got some in there also. Wouldn't be without them. So they're going to make a big difference. But look, we need to remain hydrated. We need to make sure that the amount of electrolytes per volume of water is adequate. Adjust to taste. Make sure that that is right. Some people require a lot more. Some people require a lot less. Now, you say, MJ, that gone carnivore. If you can pop this into the chat, because I'll be curious to know if your mum is eating lots of eggs and cheese, which are fantastic, by the way. I eat eggs and cheese, but they're very high in calcium. And calcium is excitatory to the body when magnesium calms it. So if the volume of calcium exceeds the amount of magnesium, so calcium is excitatory to the body or the muscle, and magnesium relaxes it. And in fact, I would not be able to do this with my arms if it wasn't for electrolytes within my body. So electrolytes from whether it's supplement or whether it's from food are incredibly important. But I would hazard a guess that it's partly to do with an adaptation process, being dehydrated despite consuming the water. And make sure you don't consume too much water, because consuming too much water will deplete the electrolytes that you're putting in. Salt in your meals may be problematic because you're increasing the amount of sodium, and sodium depletes potassium. So I would recommend maybe avoid salting the food for a few days and just consume the electrolytes and see if that works, because the sodium depletes potassium. So sodium is required in the body around 4 times lower or less than potassium. And we know this because nature supplies us with this ratio. And then it drops right down to calcium and magnesium right at the bottom, which are usually on a 1-to-1 ratio. So an electrolyte imbalance is highly probable when you're new to carnivore. Eggs and cheese with excess calcium can be problematic. So maybe try reducing those. Also, the issue with the calcium is calcium depletes magnesium. Low magnesium prevents the reabsorption of the potassium. And this will further impact the volume of sodium. So everything is intricately woven, and once you pull one of these out from the correct ratio, everything else falls apart. So give that a try, MJ. And obviously, if you get a chance, drop in the comments. Let us know if your mum is consuming lots of cheese and eggs. And we can go from there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Excellent. Let's just make sure I'm not missing a super chat before we go on to the next question, because they're coming in thick and fast. Yeah, Bobby, thank you very much. $4.99. That's really appreciated. I absolutely love that people just do a super chat and sometimes don't even put a question, which is really nice. I just want to acknowledge that Matthew's in the room. Haven't seen Matthew for a little while. A great influence on everybody in the school community, which we'll talk about later. And we have got a question. Right. Have you heard of this? Can you speak of yerba mate?
Yerba mate.
Huh?
Yerba mate. Yeah, it's a type of tea, I believe, isn't it? Look, I'm not a big fan in general. It's my
herbal infusion. Shall we call it that? That's possibly
a herbal
infusion.
Yeah, a herbal infusion. That's the posh term.
Yeah. Dried leaves and twigs. It is a sort of tea, but yeah.
Yeah. So look, it's my view on plants is that they are medicines. And we take medication if we are unwell. But long term, we don't want, in an ideal situation, we don't want to consume medication for forever, because medication eventually starts to cause problems. This is why when we visit the doctor, for example, and if we have a headache, it's a headache pill. If it's depression, they give us an antidepressant. Depressant. If we suffer with anxiety, it's a beta blocker, for example. If we're inflamed, it's an anti-inflammatory, which is fine. So these are fantastic to address that problem in the short term. Now, what we need to do is look at the root cause. So if I visit the doctor because my thumb is inflamed because I've hit it with a hammer, and I'm going to take an anti-inflammatory, then that's fantastic. That's going to help me. Now, the answer to my problem is don't hit your thumb with a hammer. So that's what I would implement moving forward. I'd be more careful with my hammer. If I'm inflamed for some other reason, then 99.9% of the time, it's to do with what you were putting into your mouth. So what we put in affects everything within the body. So things like yerba mate and other plant compounds, they can be beneficial in the short term, providing we know what the root cause is and providing we're addressing the root cause. So the way that these compounds work is that they're classed as antioxidants, except they're not antioxidants. These compounds are in fact pro-oxidants. And the benefit that we see comes from an oxidative stress pathway. So it's called hormesis, or a hormetic response, which is something akin to training in the gym. Working out in the gym is a hormetic response. So we go into the gym, we lift some weights, we cause some damage, and then we repair and come back stronger and fitter. Now, this is a true hormetic response. This is what we call environmental hormesis. And other forms of environmental hormesis would be cold water dipping, red light therapy, and so on and so forth. Now, the action from plants is very different. This is called molecular hormesis. Now, this long term, I believe not to be beneficial. But in the short term, we can see a benefit. In the short term, it can confer a benefit. And this is why when we consume things like yerba mate and turmeric and so on and so forth, let's use turmeric, my favorite compound, as many of you avid listeners will know. Turmeric is not good for you, by the way. And let's just put that out there. It's incredibly damaging to the body. But many will argue that when I was inflamed, when I had an ache and pain, I took turmeric and it helped. Well, it helps because it activates glutathione. It's a pro-oxidant. So glutathione goes to work. Glutathione is elevated in order to remove this toxin. So it conjugates to the toxin and removes it from the body. But we've seen a hormetic response, if you like, via glutathione. The body has increased this master antioxidant, and this is what has helped us combat this inflammation or this ache and pain. It does this via a pathway called NRF2, the NRF2 pathway. In the short term, this can be beneficial, but overexpression of this pathway will activate another pathway called NFKB, nuclear factor kappa B. Now, the reason I'm telling you this, Bobby, is that what you consume it for is very important. So, I mean, what I would ask back is, why are you taking it? What are you looking to achieve from it? If it's just optimal health, then it's not worth taking. If you were suffering with maybe, I don't know, anxiety and depression, then it could help in the short term, because maybe it will help balance glutamate and GABA, for example. But tea and these compounds also contain things like tannins, phytoalexins, and other plant compounds which do cause damage in the long term. So my advice when it comes to anything from the plant kingdom, why are you taking it? What response do you want to get out of it? And do you really want to be taking it long term? Because anything from the plant compound long term is going to cause problems. It's how much of the damage that we notice is the key. So I'm not a fan of tea in general. I'm not a fan of coffee in general. Now, what I would add to this is, if you were living a ketogenic carnivore lifestyle, which many would regard as being strict or restrictive, I don't believe this any longer, because I had a conversation with my brother today. Actually, we went on a 10-mile run. And he suffers with a few issues, so he's made better changes to his diet, and he's seen fantastic results. But he said, "Look, Rich, I still like a beer. Drinking a beer makes me happy. I enjoy it. I still enjoy sweet things. I like an Indian or Chinese takeaway sometimes, and I don't want to be without. I enjoy these things, and life for me without these would be boring." And I said, "Well, I enjoy eating steak. I love eating steak. I love eating eggs. I love eating lamb." And I mentioned 20 plus types of meats or whatever that I enjoy regularly. I love my lifestyle. I love the way it makes me feel. So I no longer crave these things. I no longer need that crutch. But coming back to what I said in one of the first comments, I didn't wake up yesterday being carnivore. I've gravitated into being carnivore through a series of incremental changes. I'm over a decade into my journey, well over a decade into my journey. And for 4 to 5 years of this, I was what I would regard as being, ketogenic. And carnivore is a subsection of ketosis, by the way. I won't get into that now. But I was eating lots of plants. I was making spinach and kale smoothies with turmeric and black pepper. And I was thriving, not because I was consuming those compounds, but in spite of it. It's because of the other things that I was doing. Now, I've enjoyed coffee all of my life. I love coffee. I think it's incredible. It makes me feel good. It's very social. You meet your friends and so on and so forth. Now, if that cup of yerba mate is what gets you through the day, if that's the little thing that you look forward to that allows you to maintain the journey and be consistent, then that is a positive. That is a positive thing. If you were to remove that and it was to throw a big roadblock in your journey and prevent you from maintaining the journey, then this is a positive, So in that instance, keep it in. Now, Stephen and I have only recently last year quit coffee for different reasons, as it happens, and we didn't know that the other one was doing the same thing. We've noticed significant benefits. But, Steve, by your own admission, now and again, you still enjoy, a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's understanding what damage it causes, recognizing it, and knowing that these things are accumulative also. So if you have one now and again, it's not really going to cause any problems, So that's what I would bounce back, Bobby. Apologies for the essay, but it's why are you taking it is very important. If it's just for general health, you do not need it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. But that's why I said at the top of the show, you give your time. You see, this is all free. That's why we appreciate the super chats. Tina, by the way, who gave the super chat, but I've now found your question. What is the best strategy to resolve IBS and lactose intolerance when transitioning from ketogenic diet, which has already resolved the severity of the IBS? Now, I think that's obviously transitioning from keto to carnivore. The best strategy is to transition from keto to carnivore, because I just feel you are going that extra mile. I mean, there's been a lot of chat on the social media about the fact that people on carnivore don't have any gas. Quite a big influencer with over 3 million followers on Twitter said they saw a thing from Bella, the steak and butter girl, and at the end she said doesn't suffer from gas anymore, and that's when they realized it was fake news. No, that isn't fake news. I mean, I'm a guy. Up until age 50, I thought that's what guys did. You know, women did it in private, but blokes definitely, they did it all the time. And then when I went carnivore, I realised that that's not true. And the only time I got gassy again was basically when I did my continual glucose monitor experiment and added back carbs. Now, that I know is a little bit away from IBS, but it is also about a gastrointestinal function. And I think it is a good sort of marker, both smell-wise and audio-wise, that your stomach is having problems, basically. And I think that's one of the things I would say. More people seem to resolve their gastrointestinal disorders, and of which IBS is one, when they go carnivore, and they can't believe that just dropping a few of the plants that they used to have, some of the berries, all the little bits and bobs that maybe you're doing when you're keto, they actually go. And the same with lactose intolerance, which is something I can't believe I didn't even know I had until I stopped it. Up until age 50, I always thought when I did have a cup of coffee, which is like a cappuccino, for instance, in Starbucks, yes, I fell for it all. I used to have a little bit of a tummy upset, but I didn't realize at the time. I just thought that's how you felt after you had coffee, about a minute later, 2 minutes later after finishing it. And then when I decided to stop the milk and go low carb, and then just have cream in my coffee, wow, it was like, oh, this is what you're supposed to feel like. So even milk for me, I mean, it is just the lack of the lactase enzyme, which is why some people go onto the raw milk, because those enzymes aren't killed, which is actually another subject. But anyway, I'll hand over to the expert on IBS and also lactose intolerance.
Fantastic. So IBS is something that I used to suffer with, and it's one of those things that I often forget to tell people, because I think what I've noticed, Steve, is during my journey, you come across something, you think, oh yeah, I used to suffer with that, and you forget. I used to suffer with severe IBS and lots of other things that I forget to tell people about. So IBS is caused by fructose malabsorption. Fructose, we know, comes from fruit. Fructose can also come from fructans, which are found in vegetables and grains. So a friend of mine who owns a CBD company, Joyo, he's been suffering with IBS pretty much all his life, and recently gravitated towards carnivore. Now, he's been consuming lots of vegetables for a long period of time, and this hasn't been doing anything. Now he's gone carnivore. He's back to normal bowel movements, and it's incredible. Within a couple of days, just like a flick of a switch, everything has healed, and he's still going through that healing process, but his bowel movements are now what I would call normal. So a huge improvement. Now, fructans, it's predominantly found in grains, but we can get from vegetables, which are part of a standard keto lifestyle. So what happens is it's to do with a pathway called the shikimate pathway, or the output, or the input, in fact. It's the input called PEP, phosphoenolpyruvate, which is the output of fructose metabolism. So if PEP is blocked, then fructose builds up in the lower gut, and it will begin to ferment and cause gastro-distress and IBS and so on and so forth. It'll also travel to the liver, where it can become triglycerides and lead to fatty liver disease. So it's to do with fructose malabsorption. Now, many vegetables can be problematic because of the fructans, but vegetables are also treated with a herbicide called glyphosate. Glyphosate blocks the shikimate pathway. When the shikimate pathway, which is how we produce our neurotransmitters, by the way, so another reason to avoid vegetables, when this pathway is blocked, PEP, phosphoryl builds up, and then so does the fructose, and hence the IBS. So just by removing the plant compounds, Tina, and I think, I'm going to put it out, I think Tina's talking potentially about her son, because Tina is a carnivore. I think it could be about her son or a family member. Just gravitating into more animal proteins and reducing the vegetables is going to help massively. The lactose, just don't drink milk. We're not designed to drink milk. We're the only species on the planet that drink milk from another animal, and we're the only species that drink milk past the age of infancy. You know, it's so we're doing two things that we're not designed to do. Yes, raw is better, but it can still be problematic. The casein in there can still cause intestinal permeability. If you've been living a lifestyle for a long time, the gut can be healed enough where you can get away with using some A2 dairy or raw milk. But generally, we shouldn't be over-consuming that milk at the minimum. So that's what I'd suggest. You know, just gravitate towards carnivore, eat more of the meat. You go into, or the person that you've mentioned, it may suffer with constipation or even diarrhea, and it may switch between one and the other and back and forth. But this is all to do with the bile reabsorption and the pancreatic enzymes and so on and so forth. So it is an adaptation process. But the closer that you gravitate towards carnivore, I think the better the resolution towards the IBS. And lactose, look, it's, you know, we quite often categorize cheese within the dairy group. And I don't class it as dairy, and that may shock many people, but I can't drink milk. If I drink milk, even if it's A2, it upsets my stomach, like immediately. I can eat buckets of cheese because it's low lactose. So I can eat lots of cheese. Now, cheese is a fantastic source of protein and fat, excuse me, but we are all individual in this response in regards to how our gut is. But cheese works well for me. So if the person in question wants to continue with cheese, then I'd keep that in, but drop the milk, drop the plants. If you need to do it incrementally, which is how I'd always advise, because this can lead to constipation if you do it too quick, is start building the meal to be 1/4 of the plate vegetables. So as a society, we are told to predominate vegetables on our plate, and then we're told to have lean protein in 1/4 of our plate, lean protein. Well, it should be the other way around. Our plate should physically be filled at least 75% with animal proteins. And if you are consuming vegetables, make it a small portion of your plate. Nuts and seeds, I also don't recommend, even though they fall into the keto bracket. They are very high in phytic acid and lectins, which can also be problematic. So the closer that you gravitate into this, I think the more benefit that you're going to see, you know, but it's do so via incremental changes is always my best piece of advice.
Brilliant, Rich. We just did go over 200 viewers live, which is great. Currently at 199, which is excellent. Thank you so much. Brona, I think that's how you pronounce it. $19.99. Thank you very much for that. That's really appreciated. I can't see the question that you have submitted. Maybe you submitted it under a pseudonym. Zoe has submitted a question and just wanted to say thank you. That's £5. That's very, very kind of you. Oki, $1.99. Thanks for all your efforts, both of you, which is really good. Jonathan, Carnivore Muscle is present. Thank you very much. Dutch Carnivore, we'll come to your question in a second. But just before that, just to say to people, don't forget, after this, at 8 o'clock or in half an hour, 30 minutes time, we will be on our school community. And there we will do another 30 minutes. If you're a member of the school community, you can ask your questions. And if you like what we're doing, you can also join us on Monday, tomorrow night, for a whole hour of these sort of things, which is where we do a live Q&A on a Monday as well for a whole hour. And that's amazing. We're even thinking of adding another thing. This is what school looks like. You know, you can basically put lots of questions and have, you know, conversations with members there. There is a classroom, where you can do lots of different courses. There are free ebooks, there's videos to watch, there's ebooks in all the different subjects like going carnivore, going keto, thyroid, dairy, fruit and veg, protein, problem solving. And then there's other things you can look at as well. I just want to say to people, if you join, you can't go through all of those in the first month. We've had a couple of people join and unbelievably go through everything and download some of the ebooks and then try to sell them online. Yeah, so that's why we try to get that not happening. And anyway, I just thought I'd tell you that. So yes, those courses are there, and I've put a link. I'll put a link in the description if you'd like to join the school. That's what you do. And like I say, in 30 minutes time, we will be doing this, what we're doing now, with our community, which is much smaller. I just said we've got 210 people online. Other groups at the school, maybe about 35, 30, something like that. So your questions get answered. And then Monday we do a whole hour as well. So you could join tonight, and within 10 minutes, you'll be having access to that tonight at 8 p.m. in 30 minutes. And also you'll have access to all those courses. And of course, our Mondays live question and answers for members. Dutch Carnivore, another €6, I think that is. Great question. This is actually, it says white blood cells repeatedly low. What could cause it? Good vitamin D level, carnivore, metabolically healthy, type 1 diabetic, lean mass hyperresponder, high LDL, good HDL to triglyceride ratio. When you are repeatedly low, right? I have a nurse who is it really was a client of mine for a long time, but a great friend now, who was in the nursing profession. And she was just told once, something I say to people, some people can just cycle low with their white blood cells. If everything else is fine and you just have a low number, don't forget, low is a pejorative term. It's just somebody's arbitrary normative range, which they think is good, which doesn't really apply to people that eat low carb, because most blood normative ranges are based on someone eating 45 to 65% carbohydrates. How does that range correlate with people who don't eat those amount of carbohydrates and have a completely different physiology from their nutrition? Doesn't make any sense to me. Anyway, to answer your question, do you know what type of white blood cells are low? Is it neutrophils? Is it lymphocytes? Is it a particular thing, or is it just every number is low? Because I mean, when you've got type 1 diabetes, which is allegedly, an autoimmune response, and I say allegedly because some people don't feel it is, then there is, medications. If you're taking some medications for autoimmune, then actually that will bring your white blood cell count down a little bit for some people. So there you go. If you've got an infection, of course, that would bring it down. If you want Dutch Carnivore, I think you know my email, but if you don't, zerocarbcoach@gmail.com. Drop me a line with a little bit more about your profile. And if it's a quick and easy answer, I'll give you a quick and easy answer. I just would top that with what are your symptoms? Do you have any symptoms? Because that's a big thing. If you are repeatedly having low white blood cell counts and no one is picking up on it and worried about it, and you feel great, maybe that's just where you should be. That's it. Hopefully, don't forget, this is for information purposes. It's not a patient relationship. So we're just giving that for information, but definitely can give you a little bit more if you want to follow it up. Let's go to the next question, which is from Zinc. Hello, Zinc 316. It was really nice to meet you the other day at the Healing Humanity thing, to see you live, which is really good. Good evening, lads. What are your thoughts on the GAPS diet?
Natasha Campbell McBride. Yeah, I think it's certainly got its place. Natasha, incredibly knowledgeable within this world. And it works. It clearly works, without question. My belief in certain things is that they should be incremental changes. Again, we've already mentioned this. And I think when we look at results...
Richard, could we just establish what it is for people that maybe don't know? That it's the gut and psychology syndrome diet, just for people that, it's about gut health, isn't it, basically? Sorry, Richard, you carry on.
Yeah, no, fantastic. So it's essentially it's almost a carnivore-based lifestyle with fermented vegetables, for example.
Yeah.
And so it's essentially carnivore with fermented veg. And if you're going to eat veg, that is the best way to consume it. I've got nothing against that. I think it's incredibly beneficial, and Natasha sees huge benefit. Is it optimal? I always believe strongly that carnivore is the pinnacle. And even within carnivore, we've got subsections, but I think it's an important tool in regards to maybe healing the gut along the journey. So I think it's brilliant. It's all about finding where you need to be on your lifestyle and what suits you. We know that all plant compounds, whether they are boiled, and we can reduce the toxins in there, but they still contain toxins. Will always get through. I no longer consume vegetables, but the protocol is, I know many people that have used it with massive success. So it works, and it's fantastic. I would put it up from keto, as in what we believe to be a ketogenic lifestyle from the standard perspective. And I guess it probably would fall into that remit in regards to the protein and the vegetables. So yeah, it's fantastic. If it works, then keep on doing that. Yeah, I think that's all I got to say. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're not the. Sorry, go on.
What I will just really quickly add to that, I've just found Zoe's question in the chat. So one of the
go on then.
The super chats.
What's the question?
So the question is, I was trying to find the other one also. I can't find Bronner's question, but I think Bronner. But I will keep on looking. So Zoe says, 4 months on carnivore and still no weight loss. I have reversed diabetes with keto and might still have insulin resistance. I've just purchased your DBHB. Will this help? So let's look at the first part of that to start with. 4 months of carnivore. Look, some people don't lose weight when they begin this journey for a number of reasons. It could be, Zoe, that your body's going through a healing process. So we need, before we start to get to the point where we lose the weight, then the body needs to go through this process. And if you reverse diabetes, then it's already on that way. But weight loss is a side effect of being healthy, not the other way around. So we don't lose weight to become healthy. We become healthy, then we lose weight. So it's a journey. Now, is weight loss a goal? Is what I would put into that. I'm guessing so, because you mentioned that you've just purchased DBHB. And for those who don't know what that is a form of exogenous ketone that I make. It's biologically identical to our ketones that you and I make. So why consume that, you may ask yourself. Now, there's a lot of misconception in regards to supplementation of things like MCTs and exogenous ketones. Like I don't make product or sell it unless I believe that there's a benefit to it. And these are something that I consume myself. Now, the argument from the keto carnivore community is, well, if I can make ketones, why do I want to put them in? Well, I use them for athletic performance. So it improves my athletic performance. I use it to help combat things like inflammation from a hard training session. I use it for public speaking events because it floods my brain with ketones at a level that I can't make naturally. So I'm always compos mentis, but when I flood my body with ketones, then I'm the best version of myself. Now, can it help with weight loss? I would argue yes, for a number of reasons. One, it blunts cravings. So it's because you're flooding your body with ketones, you no longer crave anything. So you're going to be consuming less, which is a big topic within the carnivore keto community. But either way, we're consuming less. When we are eating, then we're consuming highly nutrient-dense foods. Now, the key to this helping is how it affects the body and something called the monocarboxylate transporters. The monocarboxylate transporters, also known as MCTs, not to be confused with medium chain triglycerides. These are transporters in the body that allow us to transport ketones in the form of beta-hydroxybutyrate. And they also upregulate the enzymes that use the ketones within the cell. So when we begin our journey, we are inefficient at making ketones, and we waste many of them through the breath and through the urine, but we still make them, but we waste them. This is why when you gravitate into the journey, the longer that you maintain the journey, the more benefit that you see, because the body now stops wasting acetone and it utilizes and creates beta hydroxybutyrate. And then further downstream from this, the enzymes become upregulated, and now they can use the BHB at a higher level. Now, why is this important? Because things like MCT and BHB, they ramp up the body's ability to adapt quicker. So they signal the MCTs, the monocarboxyl transporters, to become adapted quicker. If you become adapted quicker, then this can help with all sorts of things. Everything that we achieve from being ketogenic and carnivore, this is what it can do, but at a higher level. It's not a magic compound, that it's not a magic elixir in the form of, you're gonna take it and lose a ton of weight, and you can take too much. So it can be counterintuitive. If you consume it with your meal, then you're likely to gain weight, because now you're flooding your body with the exogenous ketones. The body no longer requires to make any. So you're going to store weight. If you consume it too much, your body's not going to use any of this stored fat. So sparingly is best. Less is best. Maybe once, twice a day at most for weight loss. Ideally used first thing in the morning during a fasted state, and try not to eat for as long as you can, because you don't want to interfere with this and the body's ability to burn body fat over utilizing the ketones. Now, what happens when the ketones come out of the body is that the body ramps up its own production. So fat loss or fat burning, beta oxidation, goes into overdrive in the night. It's not a magic compound that's going to allow you to lose 10 pounds in a week. It's not a diet pill. It's none of those things. It's basically a signaling molecule that allows your body to adapt quicker to burning fat and utilizing ketones. So we can get into this in more depth on the school group if you like, but I'll leave it with that.
Yeah, I think that, it's very nice. People that are in the school group are in the chat saying it rocks and all that sort of stuff. And I have put a link in the chat. I won't keep putting links in the chat for people. Mike is saying, suffered a stroke some years ago. Carnivore diet has helped with some real improvements. Looking for any other improvements. Would the Cerul products help? Thanks. With the Cerul products, you cannot say it's going to cure anything. I can tell you what it does do. I mean, I take this the Stem Enhance, this one here. It does, and it's clinically proven to increase the amount of adult stem cells that release from your bone marrow. And those adult stem cells can become anything in your body and help you repair. I use it. I came off it because I couldn't afford it for a little while. I went through a period where my roof was leaking and stuff like that. And then when I went back on it, I noticed the improvements again. So, and I have many, many people that take it and say it works for them. So there you go. I can't tell you it will do that. It is something you could try. You could also then try it and then come off it and go back on and do what's called an interventional study on yourself. And if it doesn't help, then you've at least tried it. But I think, we're looking at in New Zealand and Australia, they're now having a hardcore carnivore version of Stem Enhance, which was pushed to the Cerul marketers by Bart K, and that's doing really well. But at the moment, we've got the original Stem Enhance Ultra, and that I'm pretty happy with that. So, Mike, I will put a link in the chat if you want to have a look at the products there. But we're not here to sell supplements. We're here to answer the questions, but I'll do that in a second, Mike. And we're coming to another question, which is really great from Alex. I like this one very much because it's something that comes up a lot. Some people assert that raw carnivore is better than cooked because of the carcinogenic properties of HCAs, PHAs, acrylamide, etc. How much should we be concerned about those compounds? I mean, again, just going back to what I just said to Mike, I mean, some people go raw and they feel better. So you can't deny that they feel better. Some people go on it and they can't stick to it because they don't like it and they prefer cooked meat. So it isn't just about the science. I know you're asking about the science. I mean, obviously, the enzyme integrity does break down slightly when you cook things. You don't get so many sort of advanced glycation end products. To answer your question about the particular things, heterocyclic amines, which is HCAs, well, yeah, you will get a reaction with creatine in protein, obviously, when you heat it a little bit. I think that is vastly exaggerated because humans have been eating cooked meat for 300,000 years. If you go to high cooking methods such as frying or grilling or broiling, as you say in America, You do get some HEAs if you overcook it, I think. But I don't feel that's a problem. Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons is the other one there that you're talking about, which is the fat and juices that drip onto a hot surface. Again, I think that's overblown because most people don't cook like that. Air fryers, for instance, are particularly good. So, and then there's the net benefit thing, because don't forget, cooking reduces pathogens. I know we've got stomach acid to get rid of pathogens. That's the whole point of stomach acid, to break your food down and protect you. I think I'm going to go with 300,000 years of eating cooked food. Actually, there's an oven discovered that's 700,000 years old, where humans used to cook fish. Well, I tell you what, we're still on this planet, and I feel that these things, when you look at the net benefit of eating this way and properly cooking the food, I don't feel there's much in it. But I have got a client that won't come on because they're very private. They were on a raw meat diet. They had cancer, and they decided to turn their back on mainstream medicine, and they tried a raw meat diet. And then when they went to have their scans, they'd gone into complete remission. Could be coincidence, could totally be coincidence. It could just be a placebo effect from the person just thinking themselves better, which, by the way, whenever you do a trial on a medication, the placebo effect is a real thing, because they mention it in the trials. They'll say 30% given the placebo got better or reported feeling better, and 50% on the medication. So it's been clinically trialed that placebo actually works. So that's my answer. Richard, do you want to flush that out with a bit more detail?
Yeah, look, I think you've nailed it. But Alex, what I would say is, if these are things that you were worried about, you're already winning. It's if these are the things that you're concerned with, you've already won. Because yes, they can cause damage. But as Stephen says, the net benefit from consuming the animal proteins is going to far outweigh these things. And we seem to forget that when we live this lifestyle, the production of ketones increases glutathione, the body's master antioxidant, and it allows us to combat and fight off these things. We're concerned with the toxins in the air and the microplastics in things, and we can get caught up extensively with these compounds. The body is incredibly intelligent, and providing we feed it with the nutrients that it needs, it has the ability to detox. We don't need to do any detoxing, because our bodies do it naturally when we are in the correct state, and this is the ketogenic state. Now, the acrylamide, which is produced by acrolein, which is it can be caused by reducing sugars or fat in the case of meat. So it's the acrolein that will cause the acrylamide by the heating process, as you say. Look, it's so basically a barbecue is going to create acrylamide. Am I ever going to not have a barbecue again? I love barbecues. I'm not going to eat food from a barbecue just because of that. The important thing to remember is these compounds are accumulative, which means the body's processing them daily. So acrylamide is accumulative. If we are consuming burnt meat every day, then even then, to be honest, I think the body can process it. I'm far more concerned about acrylamide from coffee, because I've been there and it's affected me substantially, incredibly, massively. I can't overemphasize that, because coffee really affected me. The second I took it out, within 2 days, these things went away, and they were severe conditions. So Alex, if you're concerned about those, you're already winning. If you cook, what I do is I cook my meat in the pan, I put the lid on, and I turn it down low, so it cooks in its own atmosphere, in its own juices, and this allows the meat to cook without being burned. And then you have a nice juicy steak without any burnt parts on there. But I'm not going to be concerned if I burn the fat on my pork one day, for example, because I love burnt fat. So it's I'm not concerned. The body has the ability to fight and detox any of these things to the point where they won't be a concern.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And thank you, Rose, for a super sticker, which AS Australian dollars 10. I think that's fantastic. Thank you so much. That's really great. let's go to the next thing, which is, oh, hello. This is actually just for you, Richard. Neil Franks. Hi, Richard. Any reasons why joints would ache when on carnivore stroke keto? One of the reasons might be coffee, by the way, acrylamides, even if it's decaf, because it's the roasting process of coffee. That was the thing that got me unstuck, and I stopped. After being a big advocate of coffee, I realised it did accumulate, and I got to age 60 in my five-a-side football, and my joints started to ache. I took the coffee out and they stopped aching. Didn't change what I was doing with football. Anyway, sorry, Richard, it was for you.
Hey, 100%. It's Steve, you were probably the world leading blood expert, in my opinion. So this isn't a blood question, but incredibly knowledgeable in regards to carnivore and nutrition. So anytime you want to take the mic, just saves me having to do it. But yeah, you're 100% spot on. Coffee can be incredibly problematic. Any plant compounds, if you're drinking tea, casein from milk can be problematic because this causes intestinal permeability. When you have intestinal permeability, which is basically holes in the gut, which is caused by the release of a molecule called zonulin, then this leads to autoimmune issues. It could also be oxalate buildup in the joints that are being released. So it might be cyclical. It could be the cold weather. I experience little niggles this time of year. And I notice when the weather warms up that they do go away. So it could be, overtraining, cold weather, and a combo of those things. It could be lack of quality electrolytes or sufficient electrolytes, or an imbalance in electrolytes. It could also be vitamin C. So vitamin C can be problematic if you're still consuming vitamin C as vitamin C is incredibly beneficial, by the way, but we can overconsume too much, especially when we go low carb, because it's absorbed more readily via the GLUT4 transporter. But too much vitamin C can become oxalate. So it could be an oxalate problem from vitamin C also. So a number of things. There's a few things to look at there, Neil. And again, when we talk the casein, we could be talking cheese also. So oleosins from coconut oil. So it could be the oleosins. So look, there's whole host of stuff. The oleosins are not found in MCT, by the way, which I think was a question in the school group, which we'll answer during the school live, actually. You sent me an interesting question this week, Steve, in regards to something else. I'm losing track of what it was. But a few things there, Neil. So take a look at those and see which levers there you can pull.
Excellent. So I think we've got... what's the next question? Sorry, I'm just a little bit over the place because I have so many things going on here. Right, here we are. I was trying to find Lindy's version of this where she doesn't do a typo. But anyway, I'll read it and I'll do it with the typo on the fly. Hi all, what's your experience with carnivore for Graves' disease? I have Graves, including eyes. So yeah, Lindy, I know you put that question there twice. Graves' disease, for those people that don't know, that's hyper. Anything with hyper means sort of above normal or more. Hyperthyroidism, where the antibodies stimulate the thyroid production to the point where it's a little bit in excess. So that's what we're talking about. Did you want to get into this?
Yeah, look, fantastic question. You want to avoid things like iodized salt, which are going to contribute to this. Your requirement for vitamin B1, B3, and calcium may be required higher because the body loses ability for those to work correctly. Vitamin B12, you may also find that you may be deficient in this, but if you are, this can cause thyroid issues also. So check those out, I would suggest, and make sure that you are consuming plenty of those. Now, calcium, as you know, I'm not a big fan of. But there are reasons that calcium is in the diet. It's incredibly important to health. But if we are hyperthyroid, then we lose the ability to utilize calcium, and vitamin D could also be something else. So take a look at those. But carnivore is fantastic because carnivore provides us with everything that we need in order to heal and repair the body. Now, if we look at damage to the thyroid, it can be caused by a number of things. I'm a big believer that plant compounds are a massive contributor. In regards to hypo, which is the opposite, too much beta carotene from plants can be problematic. The glucosinolates, which convert into isothiocyanates in plants like broccoli, can also be problematic. So personally, I'd avoid all plant compounds, consume lots of natural fats and animal proteins. And I think this is probably the best way. What typically happens with hyper is the doctor will force it into hypo. So they'll force it with toxic chemicals, essentially, to destroy some of the thyroid in order to take you hypo, which is more manageable than being hyper. I'm not a fan of doing this. In fact, my brother is hyper, and he's managing incredibly well with not even being carnivore. So he's just cautious to avoid the iodized salt to make sure that he doesn't supplement with iodine, for example. But he's thriving, and he's managing very well. So he turned down radioactive treatment, and he's thriving. So it can be done, and he isn't even that strict. So I'm a big believer in, once we supply the nutrients to the body, the building blocks that it needs, then the body will begin to repair. Your body doesn't want to be sick. And people seem to forget this. Your bodies don't say, "Oh, I've given up. I want to have aches and pains." Your body is constantly trying to heal and repair these things. Now, some things can't be repaired. At least that's what we believe. I mean, who knows? Maybe everything can. I don't know. I've seen some incredible things. I've seen some things that I've been told are impossible. Being achieved on a carnivore lifestyle. But I need to be careful that I don't say that it does all of these fantastic things, because it may not work for you. But I genuinely believe living a ketogenic lifestyle, high-fat lifestyle, carnivore-based lifestyle, avoiding low carbs, avoiding everything is going to be inflammatory and causing glycation, oxidative stress, is always going to be the best way to supply the body with the nutrients that it needs and give it the ability to use those nutrients to heal and repair the body. You're muted, Steve. You're muted.
Yes, I'm muted because I'm just writing in the chat there that there's another 30 minutes of this in the school community, and here's the link. Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. The question also said, what's your experience with Graves' hyperthyroid 2 months carnivore? Lindy, I did find your full question without the typo. My experience is that I see it resolved. And this is very interesting, because with a decade of private blood testing under my belt, I also have the empirical data that shows this happens. Not only does the person come off their medications or reduce their medications early on and see lots of resolution of problems, we also see the numbers improve. So I can't say that it definitely does that, but it's highly coincidental. That's basically it. When people go carnivore, they seem to get better results. So that's my actual personal experience of it. There you go. Right. Okay. Very quickly, we've got 2 minutes. Carnivore for a year, and I love it. I developed gout for the first time. What could be causing this? My diet hasn't changed. One of the biggest things could be oxalates, and that's one of the things that people do tend to forget when you go to this way of eating. Oxalate crystals can actually cause a problem, which is very gout-like. High levels of uric acid can be associated with gout, but also I've seen, as I just said, 10 years of doing private blood testing. Low levels of uric acid can also be associated with gout, and high levels of uric acid could be seen in people with no gout whatsoever. Just to kill two birds with one stone, someone asked about the cold weather. What happens is the solubility in cold weather actually reduces of any of your fluids in your joints. So if you do have uric acid in your joints, or you had oxalate in your joints, the cold weather reduces, like I say, solubility, which actually encourages a little bit more formation of crystals and stuff like that, which is why people say, oh, it's gone cold and all my joints are aching, along with vasoconstriction, which is, the blood vessels constricting. So that can cause a problem. On top of that, dehydration, strangely enough, in the cold weather, some people get dehydrated. So on that note, if you want to join us for another 30 minutes, I have put the school link in the chat. I will do screenshots of the questions that we haven't got to. If you come over to school and I see you there, then we'll answer that question too. If not, if you're just happy to see us on YouTube every single Sunday, that's great. Here we are in state control Britain. We got through it. Will we be shadow banned? I don't know. The numbers keep going up, so maybe we're fighting the good fight and people are taking notice. So anyway, I want to thank YouTubers for watching, and people on Spotify that also watch this on Facebook and on Twitter. And Richard, did you want to say goodbye to anyone?
Yes, before I get to that, Brona, apologies again. I still cannot find that question. I've looked high and low. I can't find your question. We'll sort something out. We'll maybe drop something in the chat, and we'll cover it. First question last time. But thank you all.
Excellent.
Fantastic turnout. With a bit of luck, maybe we'll see you on school.
Yep. Bye. Bye, everyone.